the making. Wednesday night, and we are here with you on the Alternative Football News Network, AFNtalk.com. You're also hearing us on PrimetimeSportsTalk.com. And what's the new one? Raw Talk? Raw Sports Talk? We'll figure that out before the end of the show and get you that information. 3 live streams now. Damn. I guess it's appropriate since tonight we're going to be talking about something we haven't spoken about on air yet. Well, we did last night, but we didn't give you everything. We're going to talk about the XFL Draft. It's finally here. We've all been waiting. Now, it's done. We have teams. We have players that we can support. We can decide whether we want to back a team now based upon the team that we have. Massive. It's been 2 days, 2 whole days. First thing, a lot of people on social media, a lot of people out there talking about how the draft went off. It wasn't exactly what they had expected. They wanted this huge glitz and glamour production like the NFL, and they didn't get it. You basically got war rooms with teams in play. Some excited teams, too. We'll talk about that. Some excited teams. But we had the teams in their little war rooms. We had the core of the XFL office and personnel up there in front at their own little control center, if you will. And they ran this draft basically through Zoom, which is, for those who don't know, it's an online meeting service. Yeah, a lot of people frown down upon it. We'll talk about that. A lot of things going on. We each found a player we feel that could be key for the team they were selected for. We'll talk about that. We haven't talked about the quarterbacks yet. We will talk about that later on tonight. And you know what? At the end of the day, we're going to go around the table and we're going to figure out. We're going to talk about our expectations now that we have players and we have teams to take the field. I want to welcome Michael Washington Weeks, MW Squared, to the table. How you doing, Michael?
I'm in there getting ready and preparing for this wind/rainstorm that's supposed to be hitting us tonight and tomorrow. But I'm good, man. I'm excited. I got to tell you, I'm excited.
Are you tired from all the time? 7 hours yesterday, 7 hours there, and then I would say another probably 7 today. They did the 4 rounds that went down today, so a lot of players.
Well, I worked during the day, so I missed the first part of both days, unfortunately. But no, I'm not tired. Never get tired over this.
All right, Kevin, how you doing?
No, I'm doing just fine, Harry. Got a couple of things I got to do tonight, and then tomorrow I have somewhere very special I'm going to try and secure a couple of things. Just having a very good past 3 days, especially with the XFL Draft.
Oh, I hate people who talk in riddles. Oh, so Kevin, no bad weather coming your way down there in Texas?
It's been raining on and off the past 2 days, but it hasn't been anywhere near what Michael's about to go through. So I'm okay with this light drizzle that just showers me a
light
bit.
Drizzle. Yeah, we had rain here today. It was pretty heavy, so it's on your. Enjoy it, Michael. It's pretty. I'm glad I was at work. Mark Angst comes to the table tonight to talk with us about the XFL Draft. How you doing, Mike?
I'm doing good, Harry. We have rain here too, but day off today, so Can't be too upset about that.
All right.
Do we all just have rain?
Rain across the
Pretty much.
country. It's a rainy night in Paris, and I'm sitting by Billy Joel. And we have a guest here tonight with us. He is the man behind PrimetimeSportsTalk.com, Mr. Sam Gordon. How you doing, Sam?
Well, my day was great until I got the call to be on the show, Harry.
Oh, we didn't call you. You called us. See, folks, don't get it twisted. Don't get it
All I
twisted.
do is spew the facts. That's what a news outlet does. It's spew the facts. And the fact is, you begged for me to be on the show because they need to hear the great genius of Sam Gordon, Mr. Primetime himself. So I'm here for you.
You must work for Fox or CNN, spinning the facts as you do. This is legit professional sports talk here. Thank you very much. I'm just saying. Let's get into it, guys. The draft, man. We all were thinking, XFL, the money, the $750 million corporation backing it. We're thinking they're going to have this really slick draft presentation. They did it with team names when they announced the names. They had that slick presentation. Even Vince's press conferences and stuff, they've had a nice presentation. But with this, what we got was, when I first tuned in, I was kind of like, Then I got into it because it was like a war room scenario, and I started enjoying it a lot more than I was. They used simple tools to do the draft, and I think for me, I don't know. They could have done better, but what they did really was, it had the feel of like drafting your fantasy football team online. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to go to Mark for that because, Mark, the presentation and everything, did it not have the feel of a fantasy football draft?
Oh, it was 100% just like that. Everything they did to putting the player name there with the little emblem next to it, it was exactly like a fantasy football draft.
Now, Michael, I know you're big into fantasy football. Did you get the feeling like this fantasy football thing?
Yeah, and it was also the most cost-efficient way and the best. It was probably the best way to get through all 71 rounds, was just doing a conference calls, making sure that you were having, the connection with the graphic up there so people that were following could pay attention to each player. It was the best method, and it was probably the most cost-efficient for the XFL as well. It would have been nice to see possibly like a little small green screen of sorts, but like Oliver Luck said in his little interview in between rounds and phases, he just did not want to spend the money, or they didn't want to spend the money on extravagant, because this isn't like a rookie draft. This was a draft for the entire team's roster. It was a totally different draft feel, and it was a totally different type of draft than we see with the NFL.
I feel you. Kevin, same question to you. What did you think about the fantasy feel of this draft?
Oh, I enjoyed it. From the moment I jumped on the stream and watched each player get drafted, it felt like pure fantasy. I know Michael and Mark are the ones that are fully into it, but I've had my fair share of fantasy football, and doing those drafts, it basically felt the same way. Other than, the war rooms and everything, it felt the same, and I enjoyed it. I really did.
Now, Sam, we know that you're more of an NFL guy.
No, but I have something to I have something to add to this, believe it or not.
Did you watch the draft? That was my first question to you. Did you actually watch any of it?
I saw who got drafted, and let me tell you something. The National Arena League had some of their rosters shot with how many people crossed the river to the XFL. And a large talent pool from the Massachusetts Pirates, Toby Johnson, Lashard Durr, guys who are former NFL players, making the jump from the NAL to the XFL. The XFL, which is bar none a much more prestigious league, even though they haven't played it down, and it's going to be much more successful. So you see a lot of players who played in the NFL who get one more shot, like Connor Cook and all these guys. And some of these XFL teams have run into trouble, especially with some of these players also being signed to practice squads and also getting jobs elsewhere, even though they were eligible to be drafted. Some did get drafted, but like Tyler Gothier today for the New England Patriots, he was drafted but also signed to the team, the practice squad. So there's a lot of issues. There's going to be a lot of shakeup right in the next 48 hours.
Well, here's the thing. Just like with WWE running a little off with the AEW program, I think the NFL is doing the same thing. They're locking up key players. They're doing the same damn thing. They are locking up key players to these contracts on the practice squad so that the XFL won't have them. I really think that that's going to be an issue moving into the future. Anyway, that's my opinion on the thing. For me, and you mentioned the NAL. However, those empty spaces create new opportunity for other players out there. So, and I'm not even worried about that. The NAL will go on. Indoor and arena football is strong and surviving. They may be small leagues, but they play great football, and that's why indoor and arena will go forward and will stick around for a long, long time.
I completely agree. But in regards to what gives these guys the better shot to make the jump is playing in the XFL. I think there is a much better talent pool, and it's a much better test measuring stick for any of these NFL teams that might look for talent elsewhere who don't want to look at the college level.
You can't tell me, Michael, would you agree with the statement that you cannot say the NFL doesn't look at the arena leagues and the indoor leagues and the spring leagues when it comes to scouting talent?
I think they look, but I think it's more in the off season. I think what you're seeing with the XFL side of things is probably going to be more along the lines of they're going to focus a lot more of their attention on the XFL because it's going to be an outdoor an outdoor league, so it's going to mimic a lot more of what the NFL does, with the exception of play style and a few rule differences. I think they look, but I think for the most part with the NFL, I think it's more or less a scout has to bring a team's attention to a player, unlike a player, unlike a team being just naturally catching a player naturally catching the attention of a team's a scouting department. It has to be kind of a little bit different situation there, because like a guy like Malachi Jones, lit the world on fire in the AFL, and he was on ESPN, but he didn't sign to an NFL team. He ended up going into the XFL draft pool. So I think that they look at the arena indoor leagues. I just don't think it's nearly as heavily prominent, and I think that it's harder to gauge a player's progression in a player's talent level from the indoor game to the outdoor game because it's so significantly different.
We got a couple of minutes before we got to go pay some bills. Kevin, the same question to you, man. What is the NFL is using other leagues to scout?
I'm going to agree with Michael on the point that they do it in the off season, but I don't think they heavily look at them just because. But like most of those players. I don't say most. A big majority of those players did play in the NFL at one point. So if they look at them, they're just like, okay, that's practice squad and bench players. They won't see that much playing time, so they don't really give them a call. But now if they're on the younger side and they want to give them another chance, I think so. But it's really tough for those guys to really get looked at and scouted again by an NFL team.
There we go. On that note, we're going to go pay a few bills. On the other side, we will come back and we will discuss our key players that were picked in this draft. We'll be back after these messages, as they say on TV.
The Alternative Football News Network. History in the making. .com.
On the shoulders of giants, they stand tall, unconquerable, unyielding, marching ever forward, a force united. One quest, one purpose, one resolve. Seeking glory through grit. Victory through valor. The DC Defenders, taking their stand. February 2020.
XFL Now.
Yes, indeed. We are back. We are back. We are back. We are back. You hear that wonderful music in the background there, folks. Listen in. Anyhow, we're gonna take the time now to talk about the player we feel is going to be key for the team that selected them in the 2019 XFL Draft. And since, well, the first name on my list here is KD. KD, you have listed Mr. Blake Jackson as your key player for the team selected. Give us your reasons why, everything else. All the pertinent information we're going to need to know on Mr. Jackson.
Well, with Mr. Jackson, I mean, so the funny thing about him is that he is a wide receiver, and that's his position. But he played quarterback at one point when he was in college for Mary Hardin Baylor, and then he went undrafted in 2018. Now, usually I'd look at the undrafted part of it, and I'd be like, oh, okay, maybe that's cause for concern. But it's not. It was 2018. That was a year ago. At that point, he signed with the Calgary Stampeders of the CFL, and then he was replaced at the conclusion of training camp. Released at the conclusion of training camp. But he's shown his grit on trying to keep in touch with football and make it known that he still wants to play. He was with the Spring League. He was with the Cleveland Browns at one point, and he's showing that he wants to play. And I think with a new league that is drafting multiple different players everywhere, I think we find someone like Mr. Jackson being able to come out and show what he has after going through the turmoil of not being able to play season after season since going undrafted in 2018.
Okay. Mark. Mr. Sean Oakman.
Hey, I want to talk about Sean because, not that I don't think he won't do well in the XFL, because I think he could. Mm-hmm. He has the physical capabilities to do that, but mainly because I feel like a lot of people know him for one thing. He was accused of sexual assault. He did go to trial. He was found not guilty. So I'm sure there's a lot of fans out there wondering, well, he was accused of this. How did he pass his background check? And that's how. That kind of did derail his career because he was looking to be a top draft pick for the NFL in 2016. 2 weeks before the draft is actually when these accusations came out. Since then, he's kind of bounced around the America Arena League, the Champions Indoor League, he was with the Spring League, came back to the American Arena League again this past season with West Virginia for their playoff run. I have a strong feeling Sean could do a lot of damage with the XFL, and I think Los Angeles got a good pick, a guy who has the tools, and we may see him dominate this game.
We may?
I got something for you, Harry. Don't just skip over me. You brought me on for a reason.
Well, I'm going down my list because we have a format here that we work.
Harry!
We'll bring you in at the end here. It's just the way we do business.
Go ahead, Sam.
I'm kidding around.
I don't think he meant to skip over you, buddy.
I know. But as we mentioned before the show, I want to see Jeremiah Spicer, a kid who was left in a garbage can when he was a young kid, when he was more than a toddler. And what a story. What a story. He went from homeless to XFL. It's just an amazing story. And if you watch his film, he goes after the quarterback. He's just a massive human being, can play the run, can play the pass, and he reached out. He reached out to In regards to media, he did his own PR and he built his own legacy and stuff like that. And I'm really excited to see what he'll do.
All righty. So, all right. Back down my list. Thank you very much. Michael Washington Weeks. You selected
Sorry, go ahead.
Kenny Robinson. So, what's your logic?
Well, I actually selected Kenny Robinson more based upon the overall impact that he could create for the XFL as a whole. Kenny Robinson is in Big 12 All-American, who has college eligibility left. This is important for that aspect because this is something the XFL has differentiated themselves from the NFL, where they don't have the age requirement or the amount of years you have to spend in college to come out. Kenny Robinson is a bigger name than I was expecting coming from the college ranks to be put into the XFL player pool. Then he was drafted. And this is important because this is going to put eyes from the college kids at the end of the year this year when the XFL then does their supplemental draft at the end of November to kind of fill out the rest of their rosters or try to give an opportunity and chance. And coming from a bigger school like West Virginia in a Power 5 conference kind of has people paying attention to this because this is something that this was something that we were wondering how this was going to play out. We were expecting some, maybe some D2, some mid-major colleges, some players from that aspect. Like, because if you run down the player pool list, it's a lot of Stony Brooks, it's a lot of James Madisons, it's a lot of Robert Morrises. And the fact that he is from West Virginia is the important piece here because this is bringing eyes to this product, and it's giving the NCAA and players a chance to say, hey, look, this guy got drafted. I can now go make money as an 18-year-old kid and not put my body through college and not make any money.
Okay. Makes sense. Now, we had RJ down. His was Jeremiah Spicer, and I understand his logic behind that. So, now I'm going to give mine, and mine is a shot in the dark. And I picked him because there are times in this world when things happen that we don't expect to happen. And that happened in the XFL Draft. Let me find my notes. Yeah. Because I know it's here somewhere. I'm looking up the information, but okay, here we go. I'm going with the overall draft pick number 222 for Seattle with Danny Chukwu. Not sure how you pronounce his name, from Purdue, defensive end. And I'm going to give you my reasons why. Because if you go over to Purdue and you pull up Danny's information from the school itself, this man, let's go back to 2014, the first year he played. He appeared in all 12 games, starting 6. He finished with 43 tackles. 27 were solo tackles, okay? He had 1.5 sacks on the season, 2 forced fumbles, an interception. Okay? That was his career at Purdue in 2014. Now let's move on to 2015. He started all 12 games. He finished second on the team with 79 total tackles and 40 solos. And then we have 2016. He appeared in all 12 games, making 4 starts. He finished 4th on the team with 52 total tackles, 30 solo stops on the year. On the year. Anyhow, Danny has the auspicious designation of being the first second choice player in the XFL Draft, because when Seattle went to make its pick, the player that they had selected had been withdrawn from the draft. So Danny got lucky. And there are times in this life when things like this happen for a reason. And if you look at the man's stats, he played for Purdue. They have a solid football program there. when you look at the stats he racked up on his 3 years playing, the fact that he started, appeared in all games, the fact that his numbers speak for themselves for a college football player. Dominant college football player at Purdue. He's also he's pursuing a master's degree in leadership and innovation, and that's important when you're coming into something like a professional football league, such as the XFL, because you can bring that with you. So, that being said, this is why I pick the man with the most unpronounceable name in the XFL, and Lord, that name across the back of a jersey is going to take up some space. That's Lezechukwu. Danny Ezekachu or something. They mispronounce the thing too. So there we go. That being said, we'll be back after this.
The Alternative Football News Network. History in the making.
Oh yeah, we are back. We are back, and now we're going to have a little bit of a discussion about the quarterback deals that were announced Tuesday prior to the draft. Each team, there's some names on this list that are pretty impressive. Start with, let's see, Kevin. Why don't we start with Philip Walker, the Roughnecks? That's your neck of the woods.
Well, Philip Walker, he was an interesting choice. When I first saw it, I kind of looked him up, and when I realized he went to Temple in around 2013, it kind of showed me who he is as a player and what kind of talent he brings to Houston. Because the one thing around that time frame with players from Temple is their head coach. Their head coach took him and that team to very winning records. Like, I believe he went undefeated a few times with Temple with that roster. And knowing that Philip Walker was a part of that team and being able to take his team to multiple different wins and being able to put up the numbers that he has gives me reassurance as a Roughneck fan that him as our Tier 1 quarterback is a good thing. Now, granted, I didn't know who he was before this. When he was announced as the Tier 1 quarterback for Houston, I was like, okay, out of all the names that we've seen, we've had the likes of like Zach Mettenberger and then Brandon Silvers and everything like that, which Zach didn't even get drafted. He's nowhere there. But Philip Walker is a Tier 1 quarterback for the Houston Roughnecks. And I'm okay with it, and I can't wait to see what he does on the field and how he helps us to a winning season.
I have a pick myself here. Another guy in Connor Cook. Connor Cook drafted in the 4th round, 100th overall pick by the Oakland Raiders when he played in the NFL. And now, with the 2nd overall pick, he's going to your neck of the woods. Like he's going to the Houston Roughnecks.
Yep. So, Sam, that was really interesting. And I think the one thing that Michael, Mark, Harry, and I, along with RJ, he's not here right now, when we saw that the Roughnecks took Connor, we almost all immediately thought, okay, now that means quarterback battle already in Houston. Because Connor has the prestige of Michigan State and being with the Raiders, but Philip Walker was with Temple, and he was a backup with the Colts. So it's going to be interesting to see what Houston does, but either way, Connor or Philip, I'm happy with it because I know whatever they do, we're going to have some great quarterback play.
It builds competition, and I think Philip didn't want Philip Walker to get comfortable, and then they take another. They don't just take a quarterback in the second, third round. They take it with their second overall pick.
Exactly.
A second overall pick, which in NFL terms, you're starting if you're a first round pick. Second round pick, of course you're starting.
So Michael,
exactly. And I think the one thing that's really interesting about this is the fact that
Michael,
we didn't. What was that, Harry?
I said, so Michael, Luis Perez, AAF quarterback, got drafted by LA, and I know you love the name of their team so much. Your thoughts on Perez being an AAF quarterback drafted into the XFL?
I like the selection. I like the assigned quarterback play here to LA, just mainly because Luis Perez was a guy who was trending upwards. He didn't have the greatest statistics with Birmingham at the AAF. He signed on with the Eagles and didn't make their team, but he's had NFL scouts kind of look at him, and I think that the Luis Perez just kind of makes sense for what the XFL is trying to do. He did have a very successful college career at the D2 level, and I think that that's something that is... Well, I think something that's not stated enough, or it's stated too much, but it's overlooked by fans because they're sick of hearing it, is the fact that this guy was a professional bowler who learned how to play quarterback through YouTube. And the fact that he's at that level of talent, it shows that he has a chance to grow and continue to grow. And I think that LA did a good job with the remaining rest of their draft to supply him with weapons. He needs to be more accurate, and he needs to be successful. And I think that's or successful with those weapons, and I think that he has a chance to succeed with LA just based upon what they did with their draft.
No,
he's a game manager. There you go. He doesn't turn the ball over.
Exactly, and that's going to be an important role during play. So, very, very important role. Sam, a team that's close to you over there, and a player I think you probably know quite a bit about, Mr. Cardale Jones, drafted by the DC, well, not drafted, but assigned to the DC Defenders. Thoughts?
Ohio State guy. He had a lot of hype surrounding him coming out of the draft, coming out of the NFL draft, and he just could never get anything going. He always found himself on the outside looking in, and now he gets his chance with the DC Defenders. You know, I love this kid. Great mobile quarterback. The problem is he really couldn't go through his progressions that well. And I think he was a pure college quarterback, and as an NFL, and it didn't translate to the NFL. But I think that Cardale Jones gets this chance being an XFL quarterback, which is not a developmental league. I think this is exactly what he wants, and it's exactly what he needs to get back to that status that he was in college. He was arguably a Heisman Trophy candidate.
At one point, I would agree. I'm going to go over here to Mark. Mark, let me think. Who do I want Mark to talk about here? We're saving the big name for last because we're all going to be talking about him. We all know that. Let's go over to Mark. Mark, the New York Guardians got picked up quarterback Matt McGloin.
Yep. He's actually from Scranton, where I live. He played for West Scranton in high school. Walked on at Penn State. Became the starter for Penn State under Bill O'Brien. He played all right in college. He's not the big stat guy to ever put up really huge numbers in college, but he was more of a gamer, as some people would say. You know, he did do what he needed to do to get wins a lot of times, whether that was with his legs or his arms. Never really translated to the NFL. Honestly, not a huge fan of the choice from New York. So it'll be interesting to see if they, how these quarterbacks, if they're just handed kind of the starting jobs or don't have to work for it. Because I could see a different quarterback on the Guardians taking that job.
I have to agree. And if there's one thing that Matt McGloin has over these other quarterbacks is that he has the most starting experience, if not some of the most starting experience from his time in Oakland. And at 29 years old, you're not going to be the future of a franchise, especially in New York. So I question that, and ironically, he was with Connor Cook at one point, and I have to disagree with the New York Guardians. I don't think you'll find Matt McGloin as your future. I really don't. At 29 years old and a guy who really couldn't cut it in the NFL after multiple chances, I don't think so.
I don't think his designation is necessarily a future thing as much as it is getting an experienced guy in there to be able to compete right off. I think New York is probably playing it safer to the fact that they were going to probably try to draft a guy coming out of college later on. I would not be surprised to see them do that down the road. And who knows, if they're doing a lot of the college style play, this might fit. McGloin might fit what they're trying to do perfectly if that's what that is. It's Kevin Gilbride, so it's really tough to know. He had Eli Manning and won 2 Super Bowls, so.
There you go. Let's move on to the Sea Dragons. They were given quarterback Brandon Silvers. Michael.
I love Brandon Silvers. He's a guy who was successful at Troy. He came in at Memphis when, Mettenberger and the other guy there, what was his name? Oh, the Hackenberg. the guy who hacks the quarterback position. Anyways, failed miserably for the Express, and he lit a fire under them. Even when they signed Johnny Manziel, Silvers did such a good job of keeping Manziel off the field for the most part. We only saw like a handful of drives with Johnny, and Silvers is accurate, big arm, good size. Kid has a little, he's a little gun happy sometimes. Can turn the ball over a little bit, and he's a little inaccurate in points and times. But it's a situation where he's up there with Jim Zorn, who is a quarterback coach. He's coached in the NFL as an offensive coordinator, as a head coach. He has an opportunity and chance to grow with Zorn, and I think that it's a good fit, especially for what Jim Zorn tries to do up there. It's going to be a West Coast offense. It's going to be a lot of short throws, a lot of bubble screens, slant routes. I think that it's a good fit for them because that's going to work for Silvers. And he'll be able to stretch the field with some of the receivers that they drafted as well.
All right, let's move on to Tampa Bay Vipers. Kevin, Aaron Murray.
Oh, this pick, when it first came out and they showed the graphic, and out of all the teams with the Tier 1 quarterbacks, this is the team and the quarterback that I got the most hyped for. Aaron Murray brought prestige to the Georgia Bulldogs when he was there. He had Todd Gurley. He had all these weapons around him. He brought them to the prestige that they are now with Jake Fromm. And then he got drafted by the Kansas City Chiefs. But when he got drafted, that's when they went out and they got Alex Smith from the 49ers at the time. So he never got any starting time. He never got to start. And then after that, we all know how that goes. The Chiefs drafted Patrick Mahomes. Everything else is history. Now, Aaron, he was a part of the AAF. He was with the Atlanta Legends, but we know exactly how that went. I don't blame him. I don't blame him at all. For what it was worth, even though that was a bad team, Aaron Murray showed a lot of promise because he is a mobile quarterback, not as mobile as most, but he also has a decent arm as well. He has that happy mixture of having a good arm and good running speed. And I think with the Vipers, they have a great Tier 1 quarterback, and I think they'll get at least they can have a franchise quarterback at this point for years to come until he gets older because he's not that old.
All right. Up next, we're going to save the best for last, but up next, we got the Seattle Battlehawks. They got Jordan, and I saved this one because the name.
St. Louis.
St. Louis.
St. Louis. Yeah, you're right. St. Louis. I said Battlehawks, though.
Yeah, you said Seattle Battlehawks.
Well,
Sea Dragons for Seattle.
It's been a long couple days here at the War Room here. The St. Louis Battlehawks got Jordan Te'amu. Another name with an apostrophe, and let me tell you, I hate apostrophes in names. Mark, what do you think of Jordan?
Jordan is a little bit of an unknown guy. Hasn't played in the NFL at all. college, he was a junior college transfer to Ole Miss, sat behind another quarterback for his first year with Ole Miss, did come in for the last 5 games, played well, became the starter the next season after that guy transferred, put up a lot of yards, but a 19 touchdowns to 8 interception ratio is not the best in college. And what worries me even more is he had 3 wide receivers who were all 2 drafted into the NFL. 1 went undrafted but was on a team for the entire offseason, and a tight end drafted in the NFL. He put up the biggest of numbers at a pretty prominent school at that. So it's a little odd to me that he was one of the quarterbacks taken. You know, obviously these coaches kind of, I think, got to choose their guys, and there's something this coach sees in him, so, you know, it's hard to question him, but for me, it's a weird choice knowing some of the other quarterbacks that were available to be allocated to these teams.
Well, speaking of other quarterbacks, we're going to talk about what I would think would be the number 1 draft pick overall, period, point blank. When we come back from a quick station ID and a quick break, we'll be right back.
The Alternative Football News Network. History in the making.
Party foul. Call party foul. Call a party foul. Party foul. Anyhow, welcome back to XFL Now, here on Primetime Sports Talk, AFNtalk.com, and I didn't get the name of the new live stream that we're rolling, but I'll have that for you next week. We'll have that. And brought to you by WON Sports out there in syndication land. WON Sports, Mr. Rios, pretty good dude. Check him out. WON Radio. Anyhow, we got one more quarterback we got to talk about, and I'm curious to find out because we all know Landry Jones. Dallas got lucky, big time lucky. Michael Washington Weeks, your thoughts on Landry Jones and the Dallas Renegades?
I think the only reason why Dallas got lucky is because Bob Stoops is the head coach. Honestly, I don't think Landry Jones is the best of the 8 quarterbacks, if you want my honest opinion. I actually like a lot of other fits, especially when you're talking about Cardell Jones in DC with Pep Hamilton. I like that fit. I like Jordan Diamond in St. Louis with Jonathan Hayes. I think that they drafted some veterans on offense to be able to help him, and I like Philip Walker in Houston because I think he fits June Jones's running gun system. Sam mentioned Connor Cook as a second-round pick there. It's 2 totally opposite quarterbacks, which I don't understand June Jones' thought process there, but that's June Jones's. As for Landry Jones, I think that the only reason why we sit here and we talk about Landry is because he is a big kid. He's got good size, good arm, and he's played in the NFL. He had moderate success, I guess, maybe mediocre success. I don't really know how else to really label it. But they,
he was one of the best there was.
putting the backups in the life. He didn't get a chance when he got cut. He didn't get a chance like we saw with Matt Flynn to start for another team. We didn't see it with Nick Foles when Nick Foles came in for 8 games. So he was a starting quarterback. Landry Jones didn't get that. So there's something amiss with Landry. And the thing that benefits him here in the XFL, though, is them going to that more college-style play. We mentioned it a lot on the show, and it's going to be important when we're talking about these quarterbacks, because on paper, if you're looking at these guys, okay, so we have, these quarterbacks, oh my God, their careers are just so in. The XFL is going to be bringing in a different style of football to start with the AAF. Garrett Gilbert didn't have great success in the NFL. He had a good prolific college career, and he played really well in the AAF. UCF. So I think that we have to kind of take it with a little bit of a grain of salt when we're talking about these quarterbacks. We can't just base it upon what we saw with the NFL when they were drafted or what they've done professionally.
Jordan Teamo is very good. He literally came out this year. He's a rookie for the XFL strictly. So the fact that he's a tier 1 quarterback, and we talked about Kenny Robinson. Like, he's a rookie. He would be. But he didn't go till phase 5. Jordan Teamo, tier 1. Rookie. So.
Mark.
But what worries me with Teamu is the fact that he didn't really do it in college, where Landry Jones did it in college with this coach. And so he knows this system. It'll be probably the exact same system almost that he had in college. Landry is, the quick hit, get the ball out fast, get to the line, move it quick, go, 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 go. That's the kind of quarterback he is. And in the NFL, it doesn't always work. And sometimes guys just are better in college than they are in the NFL. There's a lot of quarterbacks like that. It's one of those things. But I think Landry has the opportunity, the team, the coach, the ability to be. I mean, I don't know if what they're gonna call the MVP for this league or what they're gonna have, but to be that guy, mainly because he fits perfectly to what he got placed into.
In my opinion, when you pick a quarterback, you need to realize that they're going to be your field general. They're going to be your leader on and off the field. And when you pick a seasoned quarterback who has played in a league like the NFL, the CFL, even in arena football, they still have prior experience. Jordan Teamu does not have that. And when you bring him in to be your field chief, to be your guy to bring all those teammates together, I don't think that's a recipe for success. I think there were plenty of names out there that could have been better, because this guy, there is no success around this guy. And you build your entire system around a quarterback.
Well, that's like saying Luis Perez is the same way. I mean, he did well in the AAF, but prior to that, there was nothing. Like Michael stated, and how he's shown it, he is a YouTube-taught quarterback. So, I mean, if you're going to say that about Jordan, you kind of have to say the same thing about Luis, even if he did have the success that he did for a couple of games in the AAF.
I'm going to throw back a comment you made earlier, Sam, back to you here, because you mentioned about Matt McGloin being 29 years old, and this isn't a quarterback for the future. Landry Jones is 29. He's pushing 30.
Right.
Yeah, he fits this system, but that's clearly not a quarterback for the future. St. Louis wanted to get a quarterback for the future, and that's who they got with Jordan Teamu. Just by being a tier 1 quarterback, you don't think that necessarily demands the respect from the teammates that are there? He's got a lot of veterans around him. St. Louis drafted a lot of veterans in this draft. There's going to be guys that are going to come into this in the quarterback situation and look at Teamu and be like, this is my guy. Yeah, his career at Mississippi wasn't sensational, but you can chalk that up to coaching. You can chalk that to the offensive coordinators. You can chalk that up to...
It wasn't a bad career either.
Yeah, it wasn't a bad career at all.
He's got 5,600 career passing yards.
A.J. Brown as first-round picks.
He's broke the record for Ole Miss with a single season record of 400-yard passing games in the season. Let's see. He led the SEC in both passing per game and total offense. He's 6th overall in the history of Ole Miss with 5,600 career passing yards and 9th in passing. How can you say there's no future around a quarterback with those kind of college stats? He only played 8 games and he only started in 5 in 2017, 2018. So how can you say that with that kind of 1 year? In 1 year, he did all that. There's no future. There's no future because he's not somebody you've heard of?
I did not like, when you're building a team, is this the kind of guy you want? A guy who doesn't have experience? Really,
evidently it is.
Well, okay, that's like saying the Dolphins are in a rebuilding stage and they're going to tank and go for Tua next year.
And just because somebody doesn't have experience at a college level does not mean. Look at Perez. He came into the AAF and he showed that he was a damn fine quarterback. That's why he's here. Anyhow, overall, quarterbacks, teams, selections, everything that's been said and done. Let's go around the table before we go tonight, and let's get everyone. Let's start with Sam. Keep it short, keep it brief. Your expectations for XFL 2020, now that we've got a draft, now that we have potential teams, now that we have quarterbacks, coaches, everything's in place. Your expectations for 2020.
Show me a good quality football game. One that shows smash mouth, great pigskin ball that we all know and love. One that is not suffocated by rules and regulations that is the NFL. And games that are smooth, games that you can watch in one sitting and not get up from the couch and be bored. Just put up a good product. That's all I want.
Kevin Drake.
My expectations right now are the teams have their players, and some of these teams look great. I hope that St. Louis can bounce back from losing some of the players that they did lose after drafting, and then they signed to like practice squads and stuff in the NFL. I hope St. Louis can bounce back because they have a really good team with some solid players. Like we mentioned earlier, Kenny Robinson. I can't wait to see what the product is going to be on the field. Now I'm just waiting for uniforms.
Uniforms. All right. Mr. Michael Washington Weeks, your thoughts on your expectations?
I expect this product to be significantly better than what we're expecting it to be. I think this is going to be a better product than what the AAF put out. I'm curbing my expectations, to a degree as well, because I don't want to overhype myself, because I think everybody needs to go in with a level of skepticism. I think that's just going to be a natural reaction with the lack of springs, a successful spring football leagues, especially with the AAF and the way that happened there. What I do like about this is there's going to be coverage between Fox Sports 1, Fox, ESPN, and ESPN2. This is going to be something that's going to be treated like a big deal on these stations because they want this league to succeed. And I think that's half the battle. We didn't see it with the AAF. We're going to see it with these two premier sports networks, and I think that's something that's going to benefit them. The quarterback play is going to be the biggest thing. Oliver Luck is a quarterback guy. He's talked about it numerous times. I think that we are going to see a higher version of college football style football played in the spring, and I think it's going to be a mild success for the year one, and I think it could be very successful moving forward.
All right. And since we started with this man, we'll walk out on him. Nah, I'm just kidding. Hey, Mark, how you doing?
I'm good.
I know you're a fan of the NFL as various other types of football. Your expectations for XFL 2020?
See, I'm kind of the opposite of Mike, where I'm excited. I expect this to be some very high-level football. I don't really have skepticism, mainly because I thought the AAF was doing really well, and the XFL has better people in the background running it than the AFL did. So that's why I expect that this will be exciting. We're going to get it for multiple years. Like Michael said, they're on those channels that we can be able to watch the games. They have a lot of good players, and I think they'll continue to get these players year after year. Some will move on. We'll get new ones, and it's just going to be football year-round. You're going to get XFL in the spring. You're going to get indoor then picking up there mid-spring, summer. Then you're going to move on to the CFL, to the NFL, right back to the XFL. Just one big revolving door, which is so exciting.
And I agree, and I do agree. There's much better personnel behind the scenes in the XFL as compared to the AAF. My expectations are along the lines. I expect a quality game, a little bit more hard hitting than the NFL. I want to see things like frickin' holding penalties. Come on, it's football. Things happen. We don't need every play as a holding play. Somebody touches somebody by their hair because it's streaming halfway down to their ass, and that's a holding play if you touch it. No, we ain't going to play that game here in the XFL. I expect quality game. I expect a little bit harder hitting. More of what I grew up on as football. I think the XFL game is going to be more akin to a great high school or a college football game than an NFL game with all the glitz and glamour that the NFL puts out there. That's my belief, and that's what I expect. Right now, you can expect us to be back here next week on AFNtalk.com, PrimetimeSports.com, and Raw Talk. I'll get the name right. Next week, I promise that. WON Sports syndicates this show for us. We are available on Podbean. Give us a call, 310-876-8065. We have social media. Michael, what's yours real quick?
On Twitter, I'm at MW2 Talk TLK. They wouldn't let me put the A in there for talk. And I actually got an Instagram. It's Washington Weeks AFN Talk. You can spell that whole one out. I don't post anything, so you're not going to find me very entertaining.
Kevin, how do people find you?
You want to find me on Twitter? You can catch me at KD KevinDrake1. Yeah, that one, I don't know why it's there. Twitter put it there. I walked up, I looked at it, I said I don't like it, but they didn't care. If you want to find me on Instagram, you can find me at KevinDrake32. Unlike Michael, I'm actually very entertaining. Granted, it's a bunch of shirtless pics, so be warned. You're going to see nipples. You're going to see nipples everywhere.
That's your opinion, Mr. Angst.
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Angsty11.
Angsty11. I like that. Short and sweet. Mr. Gordon, how can they find you on social media? Thank you.
First of all, thank you, AFN crew, for having me on. You can find me on Twitter at SGNinJournalist. Yeah, because I'm going out for American Ninja Warrior, submitting my video soon. Sam Gordon on Facebook. No, I am not the little girl who runs all over people with the football, so I'm not that Sam Gordon. Also,
yes, she is. She's on roids. Deep voice.
Right. I can find me on Instagram at SGNinJournalist. Facebook, Primetime Sports Talk, PrimetimeSportsTalk.com. Thank you again, AFN crew, for having me on. A pleasure to be on.
And you can find me all over social media.
But do they want to find you?
Yes, they do. At AFN Talk. We do have Instagram. I don't know if we'd use it or not because somebody else runs that stuff for me. I don't have to worry about it. Anyhow, we will be back here next week with... What were we going to talk about? Michael, do you remember what we were supposed to talk about next week? I don't either.
Nope.
We'll figure it out. We'll be back.
No idea. Kevin, you use entertaining very loosely.
You leave me alone, Michael.
Yeah, and Sam, nobody invited Sam on. He forced his way through our door here at the studio. Just to let y'all know that. Peace.
The Alternative Football News Network. History in the making.